Small sellers, big possibility. Indian stack is making lot of uproar across the world. People want to learn that how Indian stack is actually helping India to build and strengthen its middle of the pyramid and bottom of the pyramid. We have seen a lot of government schemes getting into action, but we are also seeing that a lot of entrepreneurs getting benefit out of it. The session will be opened by placing Bharat's small sellers in the global context, underscoring both the scale and untapped potential of this market. India has over 63 million MSMEs, contributing 30% into country's GDP and nearly 50% of exports. So how we can build on this stack, this information, this database? Let's welcome Shri Sridhar Vembu, founder Zoho. He'll be joining us from his office in Tamil Nadu. Ms. Maninder Kaur, she is Additional Secretary Agriculture. Shri Sanjeev Singh, Joint Secretary DPIIT. Aniket Deoghar, CEO Hak Darshak, if I am not wrong in pronouncing. So Ms. Maninder Kaur is on her way. She is stuck in traffic, but she'll be joining us in a bit of time. To moderate this session, may I request Nitin Nair. He is from ONDC. We're keeping one seat vacant for Ms. Maninder Kaur to join us in a bit time. So Sridhar Vembuji has joined us online. Nitin, if you may permit, he can start with the keynote address.
Sridhar sir, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you, sir. We can start with you, sir.
Yes. So, I was actually listening through the previous session, and Sharad had talked about how the challenges what we face and the success of the UPI stack, what we can learn from. And from this one, I have two different perspectives, which I will talk about. First, we are a technology provider to the ecosystem. So we provide various technologies that are enabling sellers to go online, all of that, and including the ONDC app, all of that. The second, where I live, I also come across a lot of small sellers. In fact, we are part of our charitable foundation work is to enable a lot more of the rural providers to go online to sell. And this is an attempt to also create jobs. So, and there's quite a few of those efforts that we are doing here. And we have actually two separate groups that are working towards it here in multiple districts here. So I get that perspective of both being a technology provider as well as the, seeing the small seller in action. And Sharad had mentioned how the cost, what is taken up from the factory gate, that is the producer price, to what the consumer pays, and what a vast gap there is. That's the whole supply chain efficiency we have to improve passively, and that's the whole point of all this. And here I want to make an important point, and this is actually, I say this very as bluntly as possible. Today, if you look at it in the US, the technology platforms are sucking a lot of the margin now. I think Amazon taxes now something like 30 to 40% now. Okay? I'll call it tax because that's what they're actually doing. Uber is taking 40 to 50% off of a driver. So these are actually some of the things going on today. And we have to ensure that the whole mission of this whole ecosystem is to enable, to reduce that friction in the middle from the small seller. And we only enable the small seller if we reduce that friction. Because the friction is very high, the sellers also have to be consolidated and be in very large conglomerates. However, the only way to fight 30-40% tax is you become big enough to be able to negotiate. That's what actually happens. And that's the model of evolution of the larger economies. If we want to enable the small producer, we have to keep this friction very low. And in UPI, the payment friction has gone away. Payment is actually now extremely the cheapest in the world in India, and sure enough, we are seeing the explosion. Now, more than 50% of all the payment transactions are happening in India. Likewise, we can achieve this. First, we have to believe that it's possible to achieve it. For this, we have to clearly focus on the goal. What is the digital technology worth? How should they get paid? And remember, I am in the technology provider space. So I'm not talking in my book when I say that we should keep the digital tax as possible. And it's possible to do it. Software, like, people, WhatsApp can run on a shoestring budget to provide a billion people services. It's very much possible. We should not let the technology provider bamboozle people into thinking they need the hefty margin. They do not. And that's, I think, what I would start with. Thank you.
Thank you, Sridhar sir. Just as a continuation, I think you very brightly elucidated, how you think about some of these larger companies taxing, as you called it, the smaller sellers. I want to just come to a specific point in this context. So, you've done great work in not just building software, you've also taken it to smaller towns, now latest being Kottarakara and Kerala, right? What's your thinking on how do we scale this entire talent question? One of the reasons why small towns are not looked upon as places of innovation is the potential or the alleged talent gap, right? How have you thought about this and how has Zoho bridged this?
The talent is everywhere, actually. That is not the issue. I mean, pretty much, you drop a random in the map, you have potential talent. And we have a lot of experiments we have done. We know this for sure on the ground. This is not, I'm not making it a theoretical statement here. We have in Tenkasi right here where I am right now, and Tirunelveli neighboring district, and we have it in Kumbhakonam, another rural, another small town, the rural district, and then in Kottarakara in Kerala, all of it. So we do, every place we are recruiting really good talent. The key is how do we plug in? It's the same as the digital commerce question. The potential talent is there, but how do they plug into the global value chain so that they can derive the income? Because the way I see the problem today is a lot of people in India, in particular, rural India, even more specifically, are left out of the whole value chain. That they are from the outside looking in. A lot of stuff is going on, but I don't get any income out of it. Maybe I'm seen as a consumer, but I'm not ever seen as a producer. I'm not able to derive income out of it. How do we enable more people to derive the income out of it? By participating in this value chain of production. And that's where what we have done. We need small clusters. That's not very realistic, but we can set up a cluster. Even at 50 or 100 people, something like 100 people, you can get magic. And 50 or 100 people is not a very large cluster to create. So that's what we end up doing. Seeded by one or two critical talent who are often from the region, who have been in cities, want to go back. And then around them, we build 50 to 100 people. That's when we get the, both the benefit of some agglomeration, and we get the benefit of now the talent pool, local talent pool coming on board. So that's how we are doing it right now. So seeding it with a couple of smart people and then building around them with local talent. And then once it's seeded, once it takes off, the 50 to 100 then grows to 500. Now we have actually more than 1,000 people here. And each of our clusters is now growing. Now it's no longer 50, 100 people. Now we have 400, 500 people. In fact, Kottarakara is the smallest. It has 60 people. It is just the newest one. I think even that is going to grow in the next 5 years to maybe 500 or 1,000 people. That's how I anticipate.
Thank you, sir. I think one more question in this context is this entire super app approach that we've seen historically in all the domains, right? The 1, 2, maybe 3 at best apps that kind of have the entire dominance on all of these domains, right? Whether you take mobility, whether you take retail, grocery, food, etc., right? So one of the things that we wanted to understand was that how can Bharat Stack enable smaller software players to come in and homogenize and democratize this better in terms of having multiple players in a domain, so that the winner takes all approach of e-commerce is kind of changed from where we are today.
Yeah, this is actually about standardization of the interfaces, really. And this is where both industry bodies and regulatory bodies and the government, they all have to play a role. UPI is a standard. You know, it's an adopted standard. Email is a standard. It's a broadly adopted standard. On the other hand, messaging is not a standard. And something actually, in fact, contrary to the, if you internet, your provider will scream, well, I'm scream. But I believe India can do this. Go and say, here's the standard. If you don't follow it, you're out. They will follow the standard. Trust me, they'll follow the standard. So that is how it is done. So we must standardize these interfaces. Then it's an open level playing field where anybody can come. And of course, there are infrastructure and other advantages that accrue. For example, if somebody has a larger factory, they're invested in it, their economies of scale might be better. But still, we cannot allow the proprietary standards. It's sort of like you can build any amount of trains you want, but the tracks, all of the standards are the same, right? Those are the exact kind of thing we have to do. And it can be done. It is both regulatory bodies, the government, and of course the industry bodies also have to play an active role in the standards. A lot of times the standards emerge by first some voluntary groups publishing something, and then they are debated, then they are adopted. Eventually, maybe the regulatory and the government provide the blessing. I think that's the kind of the bottom-up approach I envision in this.
Thank you, Mr. Bimbu. I'll move on to Sanjeev ji. Sanjeev ji, as Joint Secretary DPIIT, you are at the cusp of leading two of India's most transformative initiatives, both Startup India as well as ONDC, right? How do you think we can get the startup energy to come in to solve for some of these small seller programs on the network, right? And how do we synergize these two programs to deliver more outcomes?
Thank you, Nitin ji. And it is indeed a great pleasure to be here. And जैसा कि आपने जो प्रश्न पूछा है कि स्टार्टअप और ONDC बीच में एक तीसरी भी कड़ी है, और आज हमारे माननीय नेशनल ट्रेडर वेलफेयर बोर्ड के चेयरमैन सुनील सिंह साहब बैठे हुए हैं, देवेश रस्तोगी साहब बैठे हुए, और बाकी लोगों को मैं देख नहीं पा रहा हूं क्योंकि ये लाइट इतनी आंखों पे आ रही है, पर प्रोबेबली ट्रेडर्स जो भारत के एक बहुत ही इम्पॉर्टेंट इकोनॉमी के हिस्से हैं, वो भी उतना ही एक इम्पॉर्टेंट हिस्सा है. अगर लेमन टर्म्स में मैं बोलूं तो ONDC एक मैदान है जिसको इंग्लिश में कहते हैं इट प्रोवाइड्स द लेवल प्लेइंग फील्ड, एंड स्टार्टअप वो कोच है जो एंटरप्रेन्योर्स इंक्लूडिंग ट्रेडर्स को मौका प्रदान करता है, जिसके तहत वो एंटरप्रेन्योर से ग्रेजुएट होके एक स्टार्टअप बने. और नमस्कार मैम. सो स्टार्टअप और ONDC का बड़ा ही आपस में गहरा और क्लोज रिलेशनशिप है. और ONDC की जो परिकल्पना हुई थी, पता नहीं मेरे से पहले किसी ने ये बयान किया कि नहीं किया, पर जब 2021 में देश कोविड महामारी से जूझ रहा था और हर तरफ निराशा का माहौल था, उस समय DPIIT ने ONDC की परिकल्पना की थी, जिसका मुख्य उद्देश्य ये था कि जो रिटेल ट्रेडर्स हैं वो कैसे अपने सामान को कंज्यूमर्स तक पहुंचाएं, या खुद भी कैसे उनके पास जो उनके प्रोडक्ट्स हैं SKU जो उसको कहते हैं, वो उनके पास कैसे आ सके. और इसी क्रम में फिर QCI साथ आया और बाकी लोग आते गए, कारवां बनता गया. और आज इस बात की बहुत खुशी होती है देख के कि ONDC जिस मुकाम पर पहुंचा है, पर अभी ये तो शुरुआत है और अभी हम लोग को बहुत आगे चलना है, और जिसमें हमें देश के सारे उद्यमी, फ्यूचर एंटरप्रेन्योर्स, ट्रेडर्स, सभी लोगों को ONDC के थ्रू जो एक देश का गोल है, जिस तरह से हमने UPI में विश्व में भारत अग्रणी है, आज चाहे वो एक ठेला वाला हो, रिक्शा वाला हो, एक सब्जी बेचने वाला हो, वो UPI यूज कर रहा है। और शायद हमें कोई ऐसा यहाँ बैठा हुआ व्यक्ति नहीं है जो UPI यूज नहीं करता है। तो यही चाह है कि ये कल रोल ONDC के पास हो कि देश का कोई छोटा से छोटा किसान हो, सेलर हो, ट्रेडर हो, वो उसके पास इसकी व्यवस्था होनी चाहिए कि वो अपने प्रोडक्ट्स को सुगमता के साथ देश के किसी कोने में बेच सके। और साथ ही साथ भारत के हर कंज्यूमर का ये अधिकार है कि उसको उसके गांव में वो जहां भी स्थित हो, चाहे वो लेह में हो या कन्याकुमारी में हो, उसके पास जो उसको किसी भी भारतीय प्रोडक्ट की या सर्विसेज की जरूरत हो तो ONDC की तरह उसे प्राप्त कराया जा सकता है।
Thank you, Sanjeev sir. Sir, from startup to Samarth seller, right? What capabilities need to be built that there is a seamless journey for these small sellers coming on ONDC to be recognized as Startup India sellers and then, you know, further develop into world-class companies?
हाँ, ये भी एक आपने बहुत अच्छा प्रश्न किया और एक्चुअली इसी पे सारा गेम टिका हुआ है। अगर मोस्ट इम्पॉर्टेंट पॉइंट कहा जाए तो वो ये है कि कैसे हम अपने जो नेटवर्क पार्टिसिपेंट को डिजिटली लिटरेट बनाएं। और डिजिटली लिटरेट बनाना एक बहुत बड़ा चैलेंज है और उसमें आई एम वेरी हैप्पी टू शेयर विथ एवरीवन कि नेशनल ट्रेडर वेलफेयर बोर्ड इसमें एक बहुत ही अच्छी भूमिका निभा रहा है। हर जगह घूम घूम के इस बात का प्रचार और प्रसार किया जा रहा है कि कैसे जो भी एंटरप्रेन्योर हैं वो डिजिटली लिटरेट बने। जब वो डिजिटली लिटरेट बनेंगे तभी उसके बाद दे कैन फॉर्म स्टार्टअप्स, they can build up their brands, and then only they can become a global champion. So ये एक जर्नी है which starts from being digitally literate और इसके लिए भी अभी अपनी कई स्कीम्स चल रही हैं इंक्लूडिंग MSME की जो टीम है उसके तहत मैं यहाँ मौजूद सभी लोगों से यही दरख्वास्त करना चाहूँगा कि अधिक से अधिक लोगों को डिजिटली लिटरेट बनाया जाए। क्योंकि जैसा आप UPI में भी देखेंगे कि एक बार UPI जब लागू हो गया तो फिर अब बताने की ज़रूरत नहीं, वो इतना अच्छा है कि लोग वर्ड ऑफ माउथ पब्लिसिटी से चलता है। तो वी हैव टू क्रिएट ए क्रिटिकल मास, उसके बाद ये कारवां अपने आप चलने लगेगा।
जी सर। सर, फ्रॉम अ डुअल पर्सपेक्टिव विद बोथ द इंस्टीट्यूशंस, राइट, क्या है सर सबसे बड़ा चैलेंज? इज इट पॉलिसी, इज इट माइंडसेट, इज इट एक्सेस टू कैपिटल और इज इट समथिंग एल्स?
अगेन ये क्या है, ये स्टार्टअप के संदर्भ में मैं बराबर कहता हूँ और ये ONDC पर उतना ही लागू है। सबसे बड़ा चैलेंज है माइंडसेट। क्योंकि आप जो हमारे उम्र के लोग होंगे इस बात को रियलाइज़ करेंगे कि जब हम लोग बच्चे थे, जब बड़े हो रहे थे, अगर अपने माता पिता से कहते कि मैं कोई धंधा करना चाहता हूँ, कोई बिजनेस करना चाहता हूँ, तो कई बार थप्पड़ लग जाते थे। उस समय केवल जो उपलब्ध हमारे पास जो ऑक्यूपेशन का था वो था कि अच्छी नौकरी करो, रोजगार के लिए कोई सवाल ही नहीं था। फिर माइंडसेट बदला 2016 में माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी के द्वारा जब स्टार्टअप इंडिया लॉन्च किया गया, तो आज बच्चे जब सवाल पूछते हैं तो जवाब ये होता है कि तुम्हारा मोट क्या है, कहाँ से फंडिंग लाओगे, जब तुम्हारी कैसे तुम इस चीज़ को प्रोडक्ट को गो टू मार्केट करोगे, कैसे प्रोटोटाइपिंग करोगे। ये अब प्रश्न ही नहीं रहा कि बिजनेस करना है कि नहीं करना है। और भारत तभी महान देश बन पाएगा, यहाँ हर किसी को नौकरी नहीं दी जा सकती है। हर कोई अगर नौकरी लेने वाला बन जाएगा तो कैसे देश का काम चलेगा। वी हैव टू बिकम जॉब गिवर्स, नॉट जॉब सीकर्स।
Job givers. Thank you, sir. So leveling the playing field, last question to you. How do the open interoperable standards, open interoperable networks like ONDC, help the small sellers compete better with larger, more established brands which have many other modes? How do you think we can do this better?
देखिए ये एक बहुत डिफिकल्ट चैलेंज है और उसी के लिए हम सब आज यहाँ बैठे हुए हैं बट अल्टीमेटली मेरा मानना है ONDC will become a network which will provide access to any Indian who wants to do business through this network. सेकेंडली जैसे मैं बिहार से आता हूँ और वहाँ के कई प्रोडक्ट हैं जर्दालू आम का नाम आपने सुना होगा कतरनी चूड़ा है ये सारे बड़े जो नेट प्लेटफॉर्म्स हैं उनका कोई इंटरेस्ट नहीं है कि वो उन प्रोडक्ट्स को हाईलाइट करें उनको बेच भी पाएँ उनके जो एल्गोरिथम में कभी वो दिखता ही नहीं आप खोज के देख लीजिए मिलेगा नहीं तो ये ONDC की जिम्मेवारी बनती है कि हमारी नेटवर्क ऐसी रोबस्ट हो कि जो एकदम बिना किसी भेदभाव के अच्छे प्रोडक्ट्स को लिस्टिंग करे क्योंकि ये हम जानते हैं कि आज जो एग्जिस्टिंग प्लेटफॉर्म्स हैं 40-50% ट्रेडर्स को चार्ज करते हैं अपने को एल्गोरिथम में ऊपर दिखाने के लिए तो आज वो समय है इनफैक्ट ONDC को भी अपने को इसलिए तैयार करना पड़ेगा कि जहां वो हम अपने टेक्नोलॉजिकली हम इतना अच्छा हो जाएं कि हम जो सिस्टम में बायस है उस बायस को ख़त्म करके हर व्यक्ति को समान मौका प्रदान करें
Thank you, Sanjeev sir. Truly democratized by providing equal opportunity for all players. Thank you. Moving on, Maninda ma'am, welcome. No problem, ma'am. Ma'am, as Additional Secretary Agriculture, you've been involved with agriculture for a very long time. There's a lot that we've been collaborating as Ministry of Agriculture and ONDC. Just wanted to tee it off by getting your view on farm to ENAM, right? How does the Department of Agriculture, right, which has seen technology as a key enabler, use the Bharat stack, right? Particularly on how do we get the last mile challenge of connecting small farmers and FPOs with potential markets?
So in this question, you've actually asked two very different things. इनाम की जो परिकल्पना थी जब वो लॉन्च हुआ था 2015 में वो ये थी वन नेशन वन मार्केट की जो मंडी की व्यवस्था है द मंडी वाज मेड डिजिटल so if a farmer takes his agri produce and in mandi he takes a wholesale agri produce so if he takes a truckload he is then hostage to how many buyers are there in the physical premises of that mandi अगर वहाँ कोई उसके उत्पाद की बोली नहीं लगाता तो उसको वो सामान वापस लेके जाना होगा जो कि उसके लिए एक बड़ी it's a kind of it reduces his bargaining power so he has to sell it at whatever is the best rate which is offered within that jurisdiction so the idea was to make it an online platform where people outside that mandi can also bid for the wholesale produce which has come to the mandi इसकी कल्पना ठीक थी portal was also technically the portal was suitable for such transactions but what happened was that agriculture marketing is a state subject so अनेक राज्यों के अनेक अपने छोटे छोटे licenses थे which were needed because those regulations were still in place irrespective of this portal coming in so the inter-mandi and interstate trade actually did not really happen and then it happened but to a very less value ENAM 2.0 is under design. We have tried to integrate it technically with ONDC and spoken to the states कि अगर ONDC, because we were told in the beginning ONDC will also help in wholesale trade. And wholesale trade is very important for a farmer. So initially we were told कि इसमें क्योंकि wholesale trade होगा, that technical thing is still underway and hopefully by end of September that would actually get rolled out. Onboarding it to ONDC would also help access logistic services. If I'm sitting in a mandi in Delhi and I'm ordering something from say Hyderabad, तो वो कौन से truck में load होके आएगा? Theoretically, it should be that he also hires his truck and insurance on the same network on which he is transacting the business. So this is still in the works, hopefully another 2 months. But what has happened in the meantime, there are 9,450 farmer producer organizations which are onboarded on various apps of ONDC. they are the ones which give us maximum hope, because inko, even though they've onboarded on apps which are not very well known at all. मतलब हमने भी उनके बारे पहली बार सुना जब हमने onboarding शुरू की, और जिनको हमने order लेने के लिए उसको भेजा, उन्होंने भी वो apps के बारे पहली बार सुना था. In spite of that, these FPOs ये केवल बेच ही नहीं रहे, ये खरीदने भी लग गए. So on any given day when we look at the dashboard, जितने चावल के या मशरूम के या दालों के जितने भी ऑर्डर आते हैं, लगभग उतने ही ऑर्डर होते हैं फॉर हर्बिसाइड, फॉर पेस्टिसाइड, फॉर जो खाद की श्रेणी है जो सब्सिडाइज्ड खाद में नहीं आती, shaft cutters. So farmers are also ordering things which they need online from these apps, as well as they are selling what they produce.
Thank you, ma'am. I think that broadly covered the scope of the question. Sorry for bundling in two questions together, right? The other thing I also wanted to get your perspective was, how can the data that digital platforms generate provide better targeted support for farmers, like localized weather, all of these topics? How can we, better orchestrate this?
Okay, so data. I'm sorry, but I'm going to come up with something जो मुझे ONDC की बहुत बड़ी कमी लग रही है. जो डेटा हम ONDC के किसी भी डैशबोर्ड से लेते हैं, that data is not accurate. So I'm not talking about the outside data of crop or weather watch or anything. I'm talking about the data of their own transactions. जो FPOs ने हमें पता है कि कम से कम 70 लाख का बिजनेस पहले साल में कर लिया था, वो उसका डैशबोर्ड दूसरे साल के अंत में भी उसको 30 लाख ही दिखा रहा है, when that amount was credited into the farmer account. So maybe it is the interface between different apps, या हो सकता है कि जब भी उसका नया वर्जन आया, रीबूट हुआ, the data is actually lost. So हमें दिक्कत ये आती है जब even parliament question होते हैं कि इस पे कितने का business हुआ. Those figures we know are inaccurate, so we are not putting them forward. Data needs to be robust, and FPO should be able to see कि मेरी किस geography से आया order, मुझे सबसे ज़्यादा किस packaging size के आए. Because unlike other retailers or small businessmen, जो farmer producer organizations हैं, वो जो बेच रहे हैं वो उसका निर्माण खुद कर रहे हैं. So they are growing the crops. अगर वो धान उगा रहे हैं उसका साफ करके वो चावल खुद बना रहे हैं, खुद पैक कर रहे हैं. So it is basically an enterprise, and it is important जब वो उसमें कोई भी वैल्यू एडिशन करके बेचता है, क्योंकि उतना रोजगार का सृजन उस गांव में होता है. So you creating rural livelihoods out of that. Plus जो packaging, shipping, those are extra livelihoods which get created. So the database as of now, I think it needs a lot of work. They should be able to access which are the geographies from which they get orders so that they can target their messaging in social media or otherwise, which is the packaging size. What are the economic packaging sizes which reduces the shipping cost? Because बहुत सारी मतलब जो India Post के हिसाब से ही चले, there are these gradations up to 2 kg, it is same. So somewhere he should be able to sell this message कि मेरे से तुम 60 रुपए की बड़ी ले रहे हो, तो तुम 4 पैकेज ले लो, तुम्हारा shipping cost उतना ही रहेगा. Vis-a-vis the other data which you said, I'm aware a lot of apps have started working on कि हम weather advisory भी देंगे और हम market prices भी देंगे. Now this to me is reinventing the wheel. मौसम विभाग की जो app है, I think everybody derives data from that. Everybody derives data, and by now it has percolated very well in the rural area कि मौसम की जानकारी लेनी है तो कहाँ से लें, मंडी भाव लेना है तो कहाँ से लें. वो एगमार्क का भी आता है, वो इनाम का भी आता है. They are visible on multiple sites already. जब ONDC पे कोई आ रहा है, वो यहाँ बेचने आ रहा है या खरीदने आ रहा है. और since apps have been the flavor for quite a while, हर विभाग और टीम ने अपनी इतनी सारी ऐप्स बना ली हैं कि जब भी फील्ड में जाया जाए तो बोलते हैं जो भी करिए नई स्कीम से ऐप मत क्रिएट कीजिए. मतलब गुजरात में there was one field functionary who told me आपके विभाग की 36 ऐप्स हैं और नई स्कीम के तहत प्लीज़ नई ऐप मत लेके आइएगा. So somewhere we need to kind of consolidate it and not bring it up because it is not something why people are coming to INAM. If he wants why he is coming to ONDC, he is not coming from मौसम की जानकारी या मंडी भाव की जानकारी to ONDC.
No, ma'am,
I think I would like to add on. Ma'am, since I have been looking from about ONDC since beginning, I think you have raised very valid point, and it is for the ONDC team to look back into the data, points and solve this. And एक बात मैं और आप लोग सबको बताना चाहूँगा मैम के बारे में, that is why I have interjected, कि जब ONDC मैं 2023 जनवरी से देख रहा हूँ और मैम ने जितना काम किया है शायद किसी ब्यूरोक्रेट ने नहीं किया है. एंड वी यूज टू से कि अगर 100 मनिंदर मैडम जैसी हो जाए तो नहीं एक्चुअली मैम मैं दिल से बोल रहा हूँ, कोई इसलिए नहीं बोल रहा हूँ कि द वे एंड ऑल ONDC टीम नोज दैट द वे यू हैव वर्क प्रोबब्ली वी ऑल द पीपल प्रेजेंट हियर इफ दे वर्क लाइक दिस कि उसको एक पैशन बना के उसको मतलब देश के लिए कुछ करना है, ये अगर भावना हो जाएगी ना तो ONDC वो दिन दूर नहीं है जब किसी भी प्लेटफॉर्म को अपने नेटवर्क से चैलेंज करेगा.
नो बट अगर आप ONDC को अगर देख रहे हैं कि इट्स अ प्लेटफॉर्म विच वी क्रिएटिंग, इट इज़ अ आई एम नॉट लुकिंग एट इट एज अ प्लेटफॉर्म, इट इज़ वी नेटवर्क, इट इज़ एक्चुअली सच अ नीड. पीपल वांट इट, दे डोंट नो बाय व्हाट नेम टू वांट इट. मैं आपको एक बहुत ऑफलाइन थोड़ा सा, आई एम सॉरी आई एम ट्रांसग्रेसिंग, NCDX प्लेटफॉर्म का हर किसी ने सुना है. It's a trading platform where you putting a price on what you will sell after a while. This April, first week of April, current financial year, NCDX said हम आपके FPO से बात करना चाहते हैं क्योंकि वो होलसेल बेच रहे हैं. उनका पूरा प्रोसेस इतना ज़्यादा कॉम्प्लिकेटेड था. आप मार्जिन मनी भरोगे, आप उसकी एक बिट दोगे, फिर then there's so many steps to A, registration on NCDX, B, actually transacting. So what we did, we said आप 4 states लीजिए, आप local language में VC कर दीजिए. That was all the enablement which was done. As of last week, 46 FPOs had traded for 150 crore on NCDX. So when we say हमें digitize करना है, it is digitization per...
340, there's a newspaper article.
No, that's over a longer period. I'm telling you from 1st of April in the current year. 1st of April, and today we are in August. It's 150 crore still last week. So now this is farmers. This may have been their first, after ONDC, this must have been there for a majority of the cases, the most digital interaction which they were doing with anybody. People are looking for markets, they're looking for better rates. Whether this solution fits or some other solution fits remains to be seen. But ONDC per se has just so much potential because market itni badi hai, nobody knows who's looking for what. And now we've reached the conclusion, सब कुछ बिकता है. The products which we thought ये कभी नहीं बिकेंगे, मतलब इसकी डिमांड ही नहीं हो सकती, वो भी बिकता है. And it has been helpful because अगर किसी ने wholesale order करना है, बजाय वो ये बोले आप मुझे सैंपल भिजवाओ, सैंपल मिला नहीं, it was मतलब ये जो एक्सरसाइज थी इतनी पॉइंटलेस थी. सैंपल 3 दिन लेट मिला, ख़राब मिला. नाउ वी जस्ट सेंड द लिंक, तुम 50 ग्राम 100 ग्राम ऑर्डर करके सैंपल ले लो. द फार्मर कलेक्टिव डजंट नो व्हाई यू आर सैम्पलिंग. यू कुड बी अ रिटेल बायर, इफ़ यू डोंट लाइक इट डोंट टॉक टू हिम. तो हमारी जो सबसे बड़ी उपयोगिता रही है फॉर ONDC, इट इज़ टू स्टार्ट द ट्रेड होलसेल बिटवीन अ पर्सन, एन ऑर्गेनाइज्ड बायर, एंड द FPO who's trying to sell their product.
Ma'am, thank you. I think those feedback on data, we will come back to you on that. That's fair feedback. I think data has to be able to solve the problems that the consumers need, right? I think you answered the last question I had in part, right? But maybe just posing it to you to see if there are any additional comments. From a trust factor for a farmer, right? How do we kind of make this a movement that a farmer is able to trust a digital platform, a digital way of transacting, both buying and selling, versus the traditional mandi system, right? How do you think we could do more to build this trust?
Okay, that's going to be, okay, I'll make it a short list. Number 1, जो farmers हैं वो बहुत बुद्धिमान लोग हैं. They know what they're doing better than, I would say, more than half the people in this room. So when they've offered something and they've done you have to maintain that trust. वो अपना बेचने के लिए, he says मैंने shipping label print कर लिया, उसको लेने कोई नहीं आया. The logistics has been the weakest link. उसको जब कोई लेने नहीं गया तो logistics वाला दूसरे या तीसरे दिन उसको चुपचाप cancel कर देता है. To reassign it, he prints a fresh label. And more important than this is people who are trying to place orders, but since there's no logistics available, people who are unable to place orders. there were a few FPOs which went off ONDC. हमें ONDC पे नहीं बेचना है क्योंकि जो हमारा रिटर्न शो हुआ वो कभी रिटर्न नहीं आया, क्योंकि वो लॉजिस्टिक्स वाला, I understand their challenges in last mile delivery. किसी से गिर गया, किसी से गुम गया, किसी से बारिश में भीग गया. But for a pharma collective, retail is probably the first time they are doing at scale. क्योंकि अभी तक तो मंडी सिस्टम ही था, जो भी आपके मिडलमैन जाके ट्रेडर्स ले जाते थे वही था. Now all of a sudden when you see the margins in retail, because the margins are huge. जब वो किसान का जो प्रोडक्ट है, मैं उदाहरण दे देती हूँ. One FPO in Uttarakhand last 10 days ago, they loaded a truck with 500 kgs of soya badi and they sent it to us. They said ये हम भेज दिए हैं, ये हमसे किचकिच नहीं होती, आप इसको बेच दीजिएगा. 500 kg of soya badi. This was 10 days ago, it came to Krishi Bhavan. I think 3-4 किलो से ज़्यादा नहीं बची होगी. His price, when they sent it and then they called us and told us हमने भेज दी है. His MRP was 350. He was happy delivering it in Delhi for 120 rupees a kg. And it is the top quality soya badi, because Uttarakhand की जो सोयाबीन होती है वो बाकी जगह से बहुत ही अलग है. So now once we told him 350, he said जो मेरे से अभी तक लेके जाते थे वो मुझे 120 भी नहीं देते थे. तो अगर आप मेरी 120 में निकाल दें, I'm very happy. His trust factor is he's loaded the truck and sent it. All what we did was we put a QR code. जिसने लेनी है ले जाओ, QR code पे scan करो, please give the money to the farmer account directly. As I told you, we've left with a which we've retained as samples, कि हमें जो ये organized लोगों को दिखाने हैं. If you like this sample, this is the contact of the FPO, call him up. So I think the biggest thing is we honor the commitment which we are making when we bring him to a platform, which is somebody picks it up, somebody delivers it, and within whatever time period is specified. If we're saying our payment is after every 7 days, his payment should get accredited. So wherever there are cases where the product got lost, or his payment was delayed, or he had to, because once you tell him, आप इसकी grievance raise करें, अगर आपका product वापस नहीं आया या आपकी payment नहीं आई, then we are little better than the people who were exploiting him earlier. So if we have to show this, we have to make that much effort.
Honoring the promise, ma'am. I think those are very, very pertinent points. Thank you for that. In the interest of time, I'm going to move to you, Aniket. Thank you for being somebody who's been running a social enterprise, Haq Darshak, right? How has been your journey doing the tech plus touch model, right? What learnings would you want to share with us today?
Thank you. I think India is largely a phygital country. I mean, everywhere there's a talk about AI taking over jobs, and which might be true for entry-level IT. But the reality is, on the ground, you still need people. I mean, you look around at this hotel, if you were doing this conference anywhere in Europe or US, you probably would have had 10 people. Here there are 5 people just in the room to help with coffee. So I think India needs people on the ground, and I think there is a need for training the cadres who are already there in spreading information. We've heard about UPI, we've heard in the morning about ONDC, but UPI is a network. It's an interface, unified payments interface. What people on the ground really relate to is Google Pay, Phone Pay, Paytm. Like, who brings the information to the citizens? And we've been working on both schemes and as an ONDC network partner in onboarding small sellers, farmers. And I think the information awareness needs to be a lot more. We need to make it easy for people to kind of get information, and for the agents on the ground also to make it extremely easy and something that is worth their time, which means they're equally compensated for the work they're putting on the ground in making people aware of what are the different benefits of different networks, what is the difference between a private and open network, how can it help them in the long run in terms of getting fair value of their products, like ma'am just mentioned. I think there is a huge constant need, and it's not a one-time effort. I think a lot of work, and I think we can't treat it as a target. A lot of times, unfortunately, when we have conversations in the ecosystem, it's given it to us as a one-time target. Literacy, digital and financial, and market literacy is a constant endeavor, because in another room, in another conference, we are talking about AI. And in another conference, we might be talking about how to get people the first time internet users. There is such a huge gap where people are trying to catch up that there is a regular need. And we've been doing that by training our local women entrepreneurs in self-help groups, SRLMs, NRLMs. And we are seeing that there is a huge demand even in the network of agents. And like I think it has already been said by other panelists in this panel and others that there is definitely a huge demand. Now, how do we ensure that we logically like go after this in terms of a set model of scale and equivalent compensation so that they can look at it as a constant kind of work is very, very important.
Thanks, Aniket. I think great points. I also wanted to go back to the structure saying that, the Bharat stack is what, the tools, right? How do we kind of do the solutioning around, how do we get small sellers, right? Help navigate them through government schemes, GST compliances, access to financial services, particularly the first time, right? How do we make this a little more easier, little more doable for some of these small sellers who are very early in the life cycle of being a digital, digitally enabled seller?
So at Hagdashak, we have digitized about 5,000 government schemes, which are state and center all combined in local languages. And we've realized that there is a very important step for a small seller, FPO, or a gig worker, which is about discovery, demand-based discovery. Most of the people do not know in terms of schemes if the scheme exists. So how do we enable discovery at scale in the first place, which will be very periodic, demand-based, very event-based, right? At a certain point I need it. I don't care about the government scheme if you give me scholarship right now. Scholarship window is October to January. If you give me scholarship information in September, it's really useful for me. So timing the information and how can we build scalable discovery interoperable engines becomes one very important. And then having multiple application windows, right? How do we also, following the same principle of seeker and provider, like can we then have multiple providers of those services? Just like we have multiple sellers, can we in schemes also have multiple providers who are offering, whether it is credit, government schemes, other programs that the government is offering on different things. And also, while there are some blanket schemes in terms of loans and others, there are very use case based government schemes, which is basis what business you are doing. Are you setting up an FPO? Are you setting up a greenhouse? Are you setting up a solar rooftop? There is a subsidy for everything, right? There might be a direct cash transfer. In certain cases, there is a cashback. In certain cases, there is an interest subvention. So how do you ensure that farmers or small sellers are able to get this information on time? I think that theoretically is available. I think we need to put a little bit more effort into marketing, a little bit more effort into educating the end customer in increasing their options of choice. A lot of times, what I have seen on the ground, the customer, which is the small seller, is told this is the program. Rather than telling them the program, can we educate them about the choice of discovery and information? Because I think, like it was mentioned, I think all these small sellers are also extremely smart. Just like the example of the farmer was given, I think in my opinion, in an urban area, the smartest business acumen is with the fruit seller. They know by 4 p.m. how much stock to sell at what price. Because he or she knows that at 6 p.m. what is the fruits I can take in the morning and what are the fruits I can keep for the next day or for the same day. If they know that acumen, they know then how to discover and find programs as long as they're getting the information at the right time and from a trusted source. Really, the other important part is that on the first question as well, the agent or the person or platform which is giving the information needs to be very extremely trusted. And then I think they will be able to get all the access to whether documentation, information. And just to add, I think we've initially actually had a lot of challenges in getting GST for our sellers when we were doing the first phase of the program. I think now as the next phase is happening, that might ease up. But I think there is also parallelly, again, like a lot of effort required to see how can we make some of these documentations easier. Because to get, whether it is onboarded on the platform or to get access to these different programs, documentation becomes a big challenge of different kinds. And how can we enable that also can ease a lot of the processes.
Thanks, Aniket. I think the last question to you, think about a pathway out of poverty, right? There's a combination of schemes, and then there is market access from ONDC, right? Combination of schemes you enable on ONDC, off ONDC, as well as the market access that ONDC enables, right? How do we kind of build a pathway out of poverty for some of these small sellers, right? Not just empowerment, but real, enablement.
I think schemes plays a role which is like, I would say, level 0, which is social security, social protection, and then market enablement. For example, the government's Ayushman Bharat health insurance or life insurance or accident insurance schemes are for people to ensure they don't fall back into poverty. Our biggest country's expense or the reason for people falling back into debt or poverty is either an accident or a health issue in the family. So can we cover everyone irrespective with social protection, social security programs that are there, and then make this as a level 0 non-negotiable? Because first is to ensure people who are fighting their way up don't fall back. We provide them that net. That is extremely important. The second is build on that, on top of that, the market linkages, where again, from a government scheme perspective where we work in, there are so many programs. Like when we look at our research team and keep looking at different states, different programs, there is a program in Maharashtra for tribal women where when they get pregnant, they are given by the government set up a kitchen garden and benefits for kind of producing their program and then linked to FPOs. This is a particular scheme in Palghar area in Maharashtra. So I think there are so many government programs that can be linked, and if we can build a network of integrated information and awareness, I think it is possible by providing that social security net.
Oh, thanks a ton, Aniket. I think with that, I think we'll come to a close for this session. Yeah, I would thank all the participants, Mr. Vembu, ma'am, Sanjeev sir, Aniket. Thank you very much. Close the session with that. Over to you, Mr. Maharaj.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you, Vembuji. Thanks for joining us from Tamil Nadu. Thank you. May I request Vibhor Jainji if he can come forward and help us in felicitating the wonderful speakers. Aniket Dioghar, he is CEO Haq Darshak. Ms. Maninder Kaur, Additional Secretary Agriculture. Shri Sanjeev Singh, Joint Secretary DPIIT. He can have his choice. Shri Nitin Nair, ONDC. Nitin, if you want to change, just let us know that if you want to change the color. Thank you very much. So this is a customary photograph, ladies and gentlemen. With your round of applause, may I conclude this session. And now let's head towards one nation, many pathways, multimodal mobility. We have with us Shri Shan MS. There will be some changes in the dais plan.